Hello my creative friends. Today I'm going to show you the cards I made for a recent swap. This is the original card and I ran out of this pool party ribbon, so I pulled in my pool party seam binding ribbon and finished some of them in these. So there's two different styles, very similar, and I'm going to show you how I made this card, not just doing one, but show you kind of the entire process so that if you want to make a card like this for a swap, you can. Or if you're a demonstrator or just somebody who likes to teach their friends how to do new things, you'll be able to see how to cut these out to make little card kits. I'm lining this up at 4 1/4 on the 8.5 by 11 side. This will make a tent fold. After cutting all of your card bases, you're going to want to score them at 5 1/2. So this is lined up at 5 1/2. And I scored them all, then I went and folded them all. And when you're doing swaps, it's important that you're precise and that your creases are nice. So use your bone folder, make those creases nice. Be careful when you're lining up and measuring and cutting so that you produce the best quality that you can. And the next piece is going to be our card base. So I'm going to just put this at the 4-inch line and I'm going to cut it at 4 inches. Take this piece, cut it at 4 inches. Take your 4-inch strips and cut them at 5 1/4. The coordination cardstock, and this comes in 12 by 12 sheets. This one's already cut out, but what I did was I cut them at 4 inches, and this will give you 3. 12 divided by 4 is 3, yeah. And that will give you the most bang for your buck as far as this cardstock. Then I take my 4-inch strip and I'm going to cut them into 2 3/4 inch rectangles. So it's 4 inches by 2 3/4 inches. While you have the cutter out, go ahead and take your piece of designer series paper. I have the More Amore DSP. I cut that into 4-inch strips just like the coordinations cardstock, and the 4-inch strips I'm just going to cut into 1-inch pieces. I do that by lining up the 1 inch on the left hand side of the cutter, or right hand side depending on which way you're looking at it. Your next step is to take your pile of 4 by 5 1/4 inch very vanilla pieces and you're going to do some stamping. And the reason I'm doing this next is if you mess up, if it doesn't stamp straight, you can flip it over and use the other side. If both sides get messed up, you can use this for your stamping to come. This is Vintage Verses. I'm using the Just Because, and I'm going to ink it up in Pool Party. Now, I think that turned out pretty good. But let's say you didn't like it. It is a little bit off. There's a little bit of lightness. What you can do is just flip it over and you get a second chance. And you can choose which side you want. So again, in keeping with being the most time efficient, you would stamp all of your 4 by 5 1/4 inch pieces. I'm going to use the Collage Curios for my stamping on this card. I'm using in particular this image here, which has a script, the butterfly, and the pendant banners. First up is the script, and I'm using I'm using Sahara Sand ink. It's a really light ink with just a touch of gray. And I'm going to stamp it twice. So I stamp and I stamp. Stamp. This is a really big time saver, stamping twice. I couldn't decide actually, this is why I did it. I couldn't decide whether I liked it with the full-on ink or the stamped off ink. I liked both ways, and I just started playing with it when I was trying to decide which colors I was going to use. And then I realized that doing it this way actually saves you a little bit more time. So it's a good way to save you just one more step. You don't have to ink up, you only ink up half of the time. I'm going to ink my butterfly in Wisteria Wonder ink. I'm using Primrose Petals for the banners, and that's the same color of coordination cardstock I used. You can do the same thing with stamping and stamping again, or you can go full on color, your choice. Now all of our stamping is done, so I'm going to set all of that aside, let it dry while I bring out the big shot for our next step. My big shot doesn't fit very well into the frame, so I'll try and show you what I did here. I just took my coordinations cardstock. This is the Primrose Petals, and I lined up 2 of them in at once. You can fit 2 in at once. So I do better with this particular embossing folder having no tabs, clear plate, my embossing folder, another clear plate, and then I'll just run it through. And this is what you end up with. The next thing I did was to just take my sander and lightly sand, mostly pulling it to one side and then turning it, pulling it to the other, and lightly sanded so that the hexagons really popped out. Take your 1-inch circle punch and just line up your stamped image and punch it out. You are going to cut off some of the banner, but I don't think it really matters. Once you have all your butterflies punched out, take your Wisteria Wonder cardstock and your 1 1/4 inch scallop circle punch and just punch these out. The last thing I did was to take the spool of ribbon. This is Island Indigo. I ran out of Pool Party, but I took the Pool Party, and I cut them into 6-inch strips and 5-inch strips. Then what I did was I took the smaller piece, put it underneath the larger piece, and just tied it in a knot. You can see what you end up with when you flip it over is a nice knot in the center. You've got the 2 tails going out. I just trimmed them at an angle. And then you have these 2 sides which will adhere to the card front. I'm going to do the ruffled ribbon technique on a separate video. I'll have it on my blog. If you're on my blog right now, just keep scrolling down after you finish this video and you'll be able to see that one. If you're on YouTube, look at the description below and I'll try and put the link to today's blog post so that you can see the other video there too. In adhering it, I started with just this card front that has the Just Because stamped on it. I flipped over my Honeycomb embossed piece and I just ran, it's a really thin layer of Tombow Mono Multi Glue. I want it fairly close to the edge, but not right next to the edge so that it doesn't just seep out. You want to leave approximately 1/4 inch at the top, and I lined up this side. When using an embossing folder, oh, you can see my mess up. When using an embossing folder and the glue, I find it works really well to flip your piece upside down and just kind of rub that glue in. tape runner to adhere this down. You could also use that glue if you want. I'm going to take my glue dots and I'm going to pick up the Island Indigo, which really it should be Pool Party, on the back side of this, of either end. Just decide where you want to adhere it. For my swap cards, I did most of them right here, but I think I'm going to try it right here this time. I kind of centered the knot on most of them, but some of them I went off to the side. The glue dots hold it in place on the back. Now use your snail to get some adhesive on the back of your 1-inch circle. Adhere it to your Wisteria Wonder scallop circle. And then use dimensionals on the back. You could probably get away with one. I just used 2. Because I love dimensionals. I don't know why I used 2. And then for my swap cards, most of them I put them here, but then towards the end when I did the ruffled ribbon, I put it there. You can just decide which spot you like it better in. The great thing about these swap cards is you can make them all exactly the same, or you can do little variations on each one to keep it interesting for you while you're making them. I've got 2 more steps. One is to put dimensionals in each corner and adhere it to the card base. And the last step will just be to add my stamp on the very back so they know who it's from. Center your card on the card front, and there you go. That's the card. Pretty easy, wasn't it? Let me pull back in the original ones. Here are the original ones that I did for my swap. I hope that this helped you a little bit, breaking down my creative process, that maybe it will help you in your creative process. If you have an opportunity to join a swap, you should run for it, go for it, do it. They're a lot of fun, and you'll get new ideas and you'll learn something each time you try it. So I want to thank you for joining me today. Hope you get to find some time today to get a little bit creative. Bye!